Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Who do you trust or whom do you trust and why? Billy and Sandra, I would say after 60 years, they've got to be trusting each other. You know, if they're not, it's their fault, you know. Their fault. Yeah. Partners in crime. Well, who do you trust? Can you name any people? Relationships? Do you trust the president? Do you trust your congressman? No politics.
At times.
No politics? Good. Ma'am?
I said, at times.
At times, it wavers, doesn't it? You know, we have one congressman that's returning home, you know, the people didn't return him, but that's okay too. God's in control even of all these political people, men and women that are running for office and everything they do. This Abdul guy up there, God's in charge of him. Go in rich and come out poor. Very few.
That don't ever happen.
Lindsey Graham's about the only one I can think of that didn't just cash in on his Senate, you know, a deal. They said he had a little over $1 million, I think, as a state. And it doesn't take much to get $1 million estate nowadays. But others, you know, it is what it is. But let's pray for them too, just like we pray for our church and our country. Pray for them.
The Monroe City judge didn't have anybody to run against her.
So
she gets to go in again.
Well, great. That's great. God's keeping the good ones in there.
She's a good one. He put 6 children in welfare in 3 days last week.
Is that right?
Children away from drug parents.
Yeah, yeah.
She said it is breaking her heart.
Yeah.
What she sees going on.
Fentanyl's everywhere, you know, and it's cheap. People, I don't know. I had some when I had my operation, the last one, and it felt good. I can see how they get hooked.
It can kill you too quickly.
Yeah, if you get too much, and that's easy to do. But what we're looking at today in our Sunday school lesson is trust. Is trust played out in the life of Gideon and the nation of Israel? And again, they're having to trust God. I'll try to get it out straight in that, but let me swap over right here. A little bit different. What's your favorite household chore? I read it was a Baptist message, and one of the writers in it, no, I take it back, it was AFA, and one of the editors and writers in it, talking about how he loved to iron yesterday.
Ooh, I hate to iron.
If he says any of his trouble, his wife is, I guess, she's in a wheelchair, and if she lays on iron sheets or clean sheets, he says he usually changes the sheets every day. It makes her feel better. Doesn't cure him, but it makes her feel better. They did that in the hospital, he said. But he finds that ironing her clothes, it helps her when she has kind of crisp clothes on, you know, clean and everything like that. And again, what about your chores, though?
I'm real good at napping.
Napping? I don't know if that's a chore now. But it is giving Vic a break, you know, in his daily routine. Do what now?
He cleans out the razor.
Oh, do you? Well, that's good. You know, they came up with those things now. You just put on that long stick, and when it's got a button on it, you just push the button, it falls off in the trash. Makes it real easy.
I hate the most is unloading the dishwasher. I don't know why, but I don't mind loading it, but I hate unloading.
Yeah.
Too much stuff.
Ironing bed is clothes.
Oh, it doesn't bother you.
Does not iron my clothes, okay?
What?
You do not. Every once in a while, I'll ask you, I don't have time, can you iron my shirt or pants? But who irons the rest of my clothes? You used to when we first got married, and you're not nice, man. You know.
Well, let's don't get out in left field here now. Let's keep the family peace and everything. But why you might like one chore better than the other. And I got a news story like I try to have every week. They give it to us there in the Sunday school. Here's the news story, though. It says, though children may doubt it, science is proving once again a truth that moms have long known. It says keeping a home clean is good for you. See these homes here? I would consider them cluttered.
Oh, that's a mess.
It may look like your home. I don't know. Not talking about you or anything like that. But generally, everyone has some clutter at least. Less companies coming, then you might try to get it cleaned up. It says keeping home clean is good for you. In fact, recent research is highlighting the benefits of engaging in the actual act of cleaning. It says, in contrast, living in a cluttered environment tends to increase stress and can have a negative impact on one's mental health. Physically speaking, clutter can overwhelm the visual cortex, which short circuits our ability to focus. What it says. In turn, that leads to tension, confusion, and irritability. And I can tell you, Patsy will testify on this. When it gets cluttered, I can't stand it. I gotta do something. It's got to be either put behind something I can't see it, or picked up, whatever. It's just part of it. It says some experts recommend a simple nighttime routine of tidying up before you go to bed. One popular method involves putting away 5 things to reduce the visual load. Remember, it's seeing it. As our bed-ready minds reflect on what we accomplished during the day, we can count household order as an accomplishment and begin the next day with a more positive outlook. Again, what we're talking about, you may believe it, may not believe it. I just thought it was a good aside, to that. Today's session focuses on God's plan to declutter his army before taking on the Midianites. We're looking at the final part of the story of Gideon and what happened with him and all those that were there and what God did. It says, just as we focus better on our home or workspace when it's uncluttered, God wanted Gideon to have uncluttered faith. Getting back towards us. To do that, he needed to trim his fighting force down to a size that would bring all the glory to God. Then the question, are there areas where we might need to declutter our lives spiritually? You need to think about that, because there probably is. I think all of us would, if we studied long and hard and thought about it, we could find areas where we need to declutter spiritually. Our mind, our thoughts, our heart, and that affects our relationship. Oh, yeah. You don't even realize you're doing it, and you're worrying, And God's in control of all those things. Yeah. What was that? That saying, worrying is paying interest on a debt that's never coming due, something like that, You're just worrying for nothing, because God's in control. This first part is entitled Too Many, though. If you looked at chapter 6, that's where we were last week in Judges. Anybody remember what we talked about?
It was about being called.
Yep, being called. Gideon is one of the longer accounts of his life in Judges. You'll find, too, where was it? We'll get next week, we'll be looking at, I know you can't see this back here, but Samson's going to be in our lesson next week, and he's real close to Gideon in that. How many judges were there?
12.
12 judges. And again, God picked out the 12 that he wanted to judge the nation. You look at Gideon, what kind of man was he? What we've read and what we've studied. What kind of personality would you say he has? Where did God find him when he first initially spoke to him? He was in a wine press threshing grain. And you always get on top of a high hill because of the wind to thresh grain to blow the chaff away. Well, why was he doing that? He was down there to try to hide it from the Midianites because they raided on a regular basis and took everything, all the crops and everything else. How would you like somebody to come in your house, go in your deep freeze, your refrigerator, your pantry, and take everything?
I'd be hacked off.
You what?
I'd be
Hacked off?
hacked off.
Well, I think you would. You'd be calling 911 or police too. You know, somebody stole all my food. And what if you didn't have the money to buy some more? That's kind of the situation the Israelites were in. It's not good. Like Puerto Rico, you may have heard this past week.
Oh.
They don't have any water. They've had a drought. I never thought about a drought in Puerto Rico, surrounded by water, you know. Of course, it goes back to rain, what you can use, but they've had to bring trucks to get water to people in situations, you know, where it was desperate like that. It says Gideon started out as a timid man. I think you could agree with that, what we saw, because he turned around when God told him, he says, spoke to him, this is not a quote, but said, brave warrior or something like that when he initially talked to him. And Gideon came back, well, what do you mean? And so where is God working in our nation? And again, he was just out there away from what God was doing. And God had to speak to him some more. He became a man used by God to accomplish brave and courageous deeds for the nation of Israel. Although used by God, he still had human feelings. There was peace in Israel for 40 years until Gideon died. Gideon led all of Israel to worship an idol in his hometown. I don't know if you've read the remainder of that account and what he did. This was more or less like thumbing his nose at God and his deliverance of the nation and him too. It says when Gideon died, the Israelites began that cycle, worshiping the Baals. That's found over in chapter 8. Has anyone ever asked you to do something that seemed outrageous and not doable? Anyone ever asked you to do something that just seemed like it was totally outrageous and not doable even? Maybe it was a employer, someone at work wanted you to do something that you didn't have the skills and you didn't think you did at least, or it was just not something that you would do. You know, there's a lot of people get in trouble. I read some accounts of that this past week. Christian teachers. It's still going on in school boards and school systems trying to make them do something. Like I know the Catholic group, it's up north, takes care of kids, and they wanted them to change the language that they used, I think, in the school, and it all goes back to homophobia and all that, and you know, and they said, we can't do that. We have freedom of speech, and Supreme Court's already ruled on that, yet we still see that going on. That could be something that you can't deal with or not going to deal with because of your beliefs, and you hold those beliefs. Read these verses here. It says in Judges 7, 1 through 3, early in the morning, Jerubbaal, Baal, that is Gideon, he got another name, and all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moriah. And if I may be wrong in this, but I thought Moriah, that was Jerusalem. I've heard that said before. In our memory verse, the Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. I can't deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. That's what they would say if he did reduce it. He says, now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. Why didn't Gideon go? because he's been questioning God all along and everything, and he's got him to this position here, and he's called out the troops from all over the nation, and only 32,000. They should have had well over to match the Midianites, 150,000. That's how many Midianites were, but they only had 32,000, and God's telling Gideon, you got too many. How would you think about it? Is that doable? In earthly terms, yeah, but in godly terms, no. God can do anything. He's not limited by time, space, knowledge, anything. He can do anything he wants to, except lie. He can't lie. He never will. Can't do it. Why would God consider there to be too many men to oppose a Midianite army of 150,000? What was going through God's mind? He looks
He
at
didn't want the glory to go to them. It wasn't them that was going to save them. It was God.
yeah, and we see when we finally get to the battle, it was totally God that won the battle for him. Were there any other thoughts possibly that God had in his mind? Think about your own life, what you face each day. Maybe some of you still work or you go to your business or whatever it is. And things aren't maybe going like you'd like to see them go. Maybe you're being asked to or having to do some things that you normally wouldn't. Is God in that? Well, yeah, he sure is. You're not going to finish growing on this earth until you leave this earth. He's always expanding your mind. He's growing you into the image of Jesus Christ. These are all things. He's thinking about that with Gideon and all the individuals that are going to be in this battle and everything too. He's got so many plans and purposes, and he sees it all at one time. When we can't see it, he sees every detail. And we'll find out in a little bit one of the details that he used to even reduce them further. Verse 2, the Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men. I can't deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Have you ever boasted against God? Look back and seen something that you accomplished and thought, I finally arrived. I've reached a level of competence, that I can sit back, maybe take it easy, or just be thoughtful, and thankful that you've accomplished whatever it was. It wasn't you. I'm sorry. You had input into it, but God is the author and finisher, not only of your faith, but you, period. You're created in the image of God. It says here, that's our memory verse 2 in verse 2. What about our nation and all our armaments of battle? We're seeing God reduce this army from 32,000, moving it down to 10,000. He's moving it. There's 22,000 left, and he's going to 10,000. What about our nation? If they say in the news, I just read it this morning and read it last week too, that President Trump is prodding the armaments makers to make more, make it quicker. Is it important that we have all these weapons and everything? Yeah, I don't know.
We want to secure our country.
Well, it kind of like at your home. Do you have a weapon at your home?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
a lot.
If you don't, you need to get one. And you need to learn how to use it correctly too, if you have one. But we hope and we pray, just like having a security team here at church, that they'll never be called on to do anything other than watch the doors and greet people and things like that. But it's that one time when they need to be there and they need to be ready. It's kind of like you as a homeowner. You need, when things aren't going the way you know they should go, you should be either on the phone 911 or getting your weapon just in case. Because there's a lot of crazy people in this world. And Satan is still roaming around, seeking whom he can devour. God's straightforward plan in verse 3 to reduce the size of the army. Now announce to the army anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left while 10,000 remained. What do you think their fear was? Have you ever been fearful? Are you fearful today? What do you fear? If we went around the room and talked about our fears, I know all of you have fears. What is your greatest fear about? I hope and I pray that I'll finish well because that's important to me. Excuse me for getting emotional, but a lot of people don't. They go home and they sit down, they don't do anything. They just, well, let the younger people take care of it. That's not the way we as believers need to live our lives. We need to finish well. Maybe you have another fear. Maybe it's fear of starvation. Maybe you buy a lot of groceries or something like that. We were talking about that a while ago. Could be anything, that we're fearful of. It says, announce to the army anyone who trembles, and evidently there were a good many trembling because there's 22,000 that left. And again, commentary that I read on a regular basis is J. Vernon McGee. He is at blueletterbible.com. You can read his commentary and others too. But throughout his commentary talking about Gideon, he talks about how he was mama's boy, he was a weakling, he was a coward. He goes on and on about it, all the way through all of his commentary talking about it. Can you see that in Gideon? If you read your lesson, maybe have read the rest of the Bible passages, we see, and we've already talked about what happened later when he creates the idol. He was a complex individual, and you are a complex individual. Yet God knows his heart, knew his heart, and he knows your heart, what your intentions are, and he wants you to follow him, to do what he says for you to do through his word, prayer, all of that. And we see Gideon here, in this. In what ways might we try to do God's work by our own might and for our own glory? That's on page 94 of your study guide. What ways might we try to do God's work by our own might and for our glory? And sometimes we don't even realize that's what we're doing. I've been guilty of that before. I know when I come each Sunday, I try to study through the week. I try to go through all the material. Sometimes I get extra time to do even more. But if I don't pray and I don't ask for God's glory, it's just terrible. And again, it usually doesn't go right. But if I ask God, that everything that we do today, that everyone here would seek to worship him, it generally goes better. I'm not, it's easy for me to mess up, even a good thing or whatever like that. But again,
It reminds me of what Brother Scott said Wednesday night. If you ask most people, including Christians, what's the purpose of life? They would say to be happy or to have peace and comfort. That's what most Christians think, over 50%. And he says that is not our purpose in life.
Why do you think that's wrong?
Well, it's not that it's wrong that you want to be happy, but that's not the purpose of life.
But I'm thinking about the goal that we set for ourselves. I just want to be happy. Just like what I was talking about a while ago. As we get older, maybe we're suffering for different pains and things like operations and all. Well, I'll just stay home. We want to be happy.
Yeah, well, if I'm sick and hurting, I'll stay home now.
Well, look at Doug.
He's not hurting at all. He says he's feeling fine.
Are you hurting, Doug?
No, he's admitted that. He says, I feel fine. I'm not in pain at all. I'm just ugly, but that's okay.
Well, I think it's a great thing that he came on and came to church, and he even having to wear that mask because of the bruising and everything they did in the surgery, but he's getting better.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about it. God is bringing healing to your body. Yeah, it's important. Any others? Gideon lost 2/3 of his soldiers in a matter of minutes. He says the worrisome discrepancy between the armies had grown larger, but God wasn't done yet. You find that true in your life? You think things are bad, nothing's going right, and it gets worse.
You hadn't seen nothing. You hadn't seen nothing yet, he says.
Everything that's old is still the same today. You know, it hasn't changed, and people to a great extent haven't changed either. We changed this, talking about changing. Yeah. Judges 7:4-8. Still too many. Still too many.
I'm surprised that not more went home, really, when they saw what they were up against and the fear of being killed.
Yeah, we got 10,000 that are, they're keeping their place there is the thing about it. That ties in with what I wanted to ask now. Have you ever been part of a trust fall exercise?
Oh, where you trust somebody to
Yeah,
catch you.
people are behind you, and you just have to fall all the way back. How'd you feel? Some of you had it.
Stand up, I'll catch you.
There's a advertisement on TV where this daddy is going to catch his daughter in the trust fall, and he lets her fall. See, I'm teaching you, don't trust anybody.
I don't think that's good,
Not right.
Well, what's the purpose of this kind of activity?
To show that you can trust somebody.
Well, not only that you can, but you to trust that they're going to catch you. So trust increases if you're involved in a trust fall. If you're involved in like Sandra and Billy in 60 years of marriage, do you trust each other? Well, you need to. If you don't, it's a miserable life. Whatever number of years any of us are in a relationship, we need to trust. Coming to Sunday school, that's trust. You know people are not going to talk bad about you. We'll pray for you. Church, same way. Do you think Gideon may have been experiencing some of the same emotions that are produced by taking place with the trust fall? Yeah, I think so. He's out there. He's the tip of the spear. They're going to go and battle 150,000 Midianites. They have all these camels, swords, and remember the Israelites, they didn't have a whole lot of swords. Philistines sharpened everything and made the metal work, and they weren't friends or they were enemies with the Philistines too. So things were not, I would say the best shape that they could be in. Do you think Gideon may have been experiencing, some of the same emotions? Let's read these verses. That's where I want to go. Still too many, but the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there. If I say this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. Verse 5, so Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. Do what now? Well, they're not saying the part where they're actually bringing it in their hand. Right. Not like a dog in the water,
Well, one of them does. One of them laps the water with their tongue. The other one does it with their hand.
That's what she's talking about, too. Verse 6, though, 300 of them drank from cupped hands, lapping like dogs. Verse 6 tells us the explanation of that. All the rest go down on their knees to drink. They just got down and drank. If you watch a dog, too, it doesn't stick its mouth or its snout in the water. Your tongue bringing it up to their mouth, even if they're there at the water. I know, it's weird. Verse 7, the Lord said to Gideon with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands, but all the others go home. Well, how many would that be? 9,700?
Yeah.
Vomit.
10,000.
Leave.
Yeah.
What do you think Gideon thought when he saw this and heard this? Oh no, we're going to get whooped like a red-headed stepchild.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Gonna
bad.
get killed, yeah.
But again, with the 300 men that had left, I will save you and the Midianites. Let all the others go. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites home, but kept the 300 who took, this is important, took the provisions and trumpets of the others. I know our study guide, it makes a point. I think I had written that down. I don't know if I've got it now. Now, I don't have it down. Those trumpets, they were ram's horns.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they curl around like that? They made trumpets out of those. Mouthpiece that went in, you've probably seen them made out of cow horns and things like that. That's what he's talking about. And you just put yourself in Gideon's position. What's he doing? What's going on? Has God gone crazy? Do you ever think God is, not thinking right? I won't say he's crazy. But God, do you know? You ever question God? Do you know what you're doing? I know I have before.
I question by asking why
Yeah.
this happened. Why?
Why?
Happen? What is?
You're like little children, aren't we? A lot of times, a little child, you tell them to do something. Well, why? That's the first response. And you tell them something again. This is the reason why, and then they say why. Constantly why. Well, they're learning too. They don't know the things we know, so they're learning also. Their character, their emotions are being built. A lot of things are going on. What would the outcome have been if even one of the three? Well, I ain't got to that yet. Excuse me, I'm in the wrong. My thumb's in the wrong spot. On page 95 of your study guide, that's wrong. Not 95, can't be. Let me find it here. Key doctrine, 105. Key doctrine. Information on page 95 there. Key doctrine, God's purpose of grace. Believers may fall into sin through neglect and temptation, whereby they grieve the Spirit, impair their graces, talking about our graces, and our comforts, and bring reproach on the cause of Christ and temporal judgment on themselves or ourselves. Yet they shall be kept in the power of God through faith unto salvation. And it gives us the reference there for all of that. We can hurt our own self.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even realize it. We think we're doing something good for God, and it's totally wrong. We haven't prayed about it. Maybe He hasn't spoken to us to tell us to be involved in this. And things are just, so we need to be very cautious and we need to be aware of God all around us every moment of every day.
I've heard others speak many times when churches are having trouble. And one group says, we're praying to God and He's leading us. And the other group saying, we're praying to God and He's leading us. And Claudia said, I would tell them, no way.
Yeah.
Both of you cannot say you're following God. There's something wrong.
Yeah. You got some humanity in that. Yeah.
We have to be careful what we think we're asking for and if it's right or not.
Right. Well, what we've seen, in taking place here in that army, verses 10 through 18, I know it's not in our lesson there, but if you turn to that, 16.
You're still in chapter 7, aren't you?
Yeah, we're moving up 16, I think, is where this is that I wanted to read. No, that's not it. Back in 6. I got a wrong reference. I'm talking about me messing up. 10 through 18. That's still not it.
What are you trying to find?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
Down to chapter 7, verse 10. But if these fear to go down, go thou with Purah, thy servant, down to the host. This is not recounted in our lesson. And thou shalt hear what they say, and afterward shall thine hands be strengthened to go down into the host. Then went he down with Purah, his servant, unto the host on the hillside, and unto the outside of the armed men that were in the host. And the Midianites and the Amalekites, so we've got some others in here too, and all the children of the east lay along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number as the sand by the seaside for multitude. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow. They're sneaking up on these people in the bushes. Remember, they didn't have the lights that we have today to give themselves away. And he says, behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian, and came into a tent, and smote it that it fell, and overturned it. But that tent lay alone. And his fellow answered and said, this is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel, for unto his hand hath God delivered Midian and all the host. And he's overhearing this. Verse 15, and it was so when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned unto the host of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord hath delivered into your hand the host of Midian. And again, we'll see what he did 16 and 17 there, the plan that God had disclosed to him about what they were fixing to do. It's important. What was God doing for him? He was encouraging him. Does he ever encourage you? Does he allow you to see things, experience things that you didn't expect? Encourage you in some activity maybe you're doing? Again, he's always doing that all the time, I think. He's always there. Oops. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men, I can't deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My strength has saved me. Excuse me, I need to get back to that one there. What would the outcome have been? We see the plan, and that's to take the 300 with the jars, if it's in your Sunday school lesson there. They got what in their hands? Got a jar with a torch in it on one hand. They got what? The horn on the other. And they're going, to do what?
Fight the Midianites.
Yeah, but what's their actions going to be? They're going to crack open these jars. They're going to blow the horn, and then they're going to shout. My question was, what if one of these men out of 300 had dropped his jar? What do you think the outcome would have been? They would realize, hey, there's somebody up there. Even one drop his jar. So they were extra careful. So much so. This is around midnight, too. It's not earlier. This is around midnight. So this is that guard that was set up. If you went from 6 to 12, 12 to 6, 6 to 12, going around the clock, 4 different guard duties coming. These had just come on. The new ones had at 12. The new guards, they were fresh. What was everybody else doing Midianites?
Yeah.
They were sleeping. It's been a busy day getting ready for war, so they went to sleep. And they didn't suspect anything.
The guard probably asleep too.
Sir?
The guard probably asleep too.
Surely not. Surely not. The timing of the attack we just talked about. Verse 23, in the proximity of the Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh were called out and they pursued the Midianites. We find this after the victory in the battle. This is some of that probably 32,000 that had left. and went back home. They were either afraid, they had to be nearby for Gideon to get word to them, you need to pursue these Midianites. They went back across the Jordan, the Midianites did. They lived back over here in the desert area. This over here. I never did show. Look, Gideon, we're talking about right up here. This is Issachar. That's the Sea of Galilee up here. They had a pretty good way to go running a goal line up here like that.
You know what I wondered why, when the 300 trumpets sounded, did the men start turning on each other with their swords? What was the point of that?
Well, they shouted too, that was part of it. There was more than just the lights, more than the horn and the shouting.
Yeah.
I think God, instill fear in them. I can't say that, for a fact or anything, but it was dark. And if you got Midianites, Amalekites, I don't know how close they were, but anyway, they started fighting each other and they killed each other. Was the thing about it. This was God's plan. He knew before they ever started that that's what would happen. How should knowing that God acts in unpredictable ways impact how we live? How does knowing that God works and through unpredictable ways, how should that impact how we live?
We've got to trust him because we realize his ways are not our ways.
Yeah.
And his time is not our time.
Yeah, and we need, that's true. We need to be conscious when things happen. Don't just fly off the handle or say, God wanted it. He's got a purpose in everything. We need to look for it. We need to ask him, show me. As believers, he loves us. He cares for us. Again, apply the lesson. Believers dishonor God when they seek the glory that belongs to him alone. How is that possible? Believers dishonor God when they seek the glory. Well, all glory should be God's. He's the author and finisher of life. Believers need to trust that God's way of doing things is always best. Ties in with what I said earlier. Believers should pray for God to do what only he can do. What's the purpose of prayer? Just to ask God for things?
Form of worship.
Praise.
Praise.
Okay. Can be praise. What do most people most of the time do, though, in their prayers?
Ask for things.
I want you to take care of my grandchildren, take care of my children, take care of my wife, my husband, whatever. It's things that we want for our own reason, not for his glorification. We serve an awesome God, I know that. He's perfect. He's holy. Any other thoughts before we're dismissed? We're out of time. Bow with me and we'll be dismissed. Father, again, we just thank you that you have a plan for our lives. We just pray that you would disclose it to us like you do, moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day, and in months and years after that, that you don't give it to us all at one time. We have to trust and obey, just like they say in the song, because there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Father, I pray not for my blessing, but for everyone here, each family, each person that's represented in our class. Bring healing if they need healing. Bring trouble if it's trouble they need. Maybe you want to call them to a closer relationship, that you love them. Just whatever it is, God, that you would show us, that you would guide us, lead us, because we pray and ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. That memory verse messed up. Supposed to be 7:2, and I had that other underlined. I don't know why I underlined. I had to go back and look on it. Like Patsy's prayer list. Something went wrong.
That's a lot.
Yeah.